Part 33. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 321. The hall was brightly lit and incense was wafting. The woman's voice was cold and lazy. Tai Gong said, "The water flows when the abyss is deep, and fish are born when the water flows, which is affection. Gentlemen have the same affection and are close to each other, and things are born when they are close to each other, which is affection. The words that respond to each other are the decoration of affection. Now I am speaking with all my heart. Do you hate it? Can you understand the meaning of this paragraph?" Fu Kang nodded slowly. The source is deep, and the river can flow forever, and the river can flow smoothly, and fish can grow and multiply. Gentlemen have the same interests and feelings, and they will work closely together and plan their careers together. The saying of gentlemen can also be applied to the relationship between monarchs and ministers. Chu Qinghuang's eyes fell on the book. The monarch and ministers trust each other and respect each other, and the friendship between monarchs and ministers can last for a long time. The same is true between husband and wife. If the cognition, vision, pattern, and pursuit are the same, the relationship between husband and wife can last for a long time. If one party depends on the other party, or has different interests, or is submissive, they will eventually separate. Fu Kang was silent and thought carefully. Is the master explaining to him why he must become a disciple and learn skills? There is also this paragraph, which talks about the emperor's art of employing people. Chu Qinghuang tapped her finger lightly. The king collects talents, just like fishing bait, and different baits should be used for different fish. Small talents, medium talents, and great talents must be granted different positions and official titles to make the other party willing to submit. This sentence talks about the mind of a gentleman. A benevolent person can accept upright advice. This sentence is most suitable for the king. If the king has no virtue, a narrow mind, and cannot listen to unpleasant and honest advice, there will be no place for loyal ministers in the court, and treacherous ministers will be in power and villains will run rampant. There is also this paragraph. The clear and cold voice stopped from time to time, without any waves, and patiently explained the views in the book in the most straightforward and easy to understand words. Rong Yu and Nan 11 stood quietly on the corridor outside the East Upper Pavilion. Although they were a little far away, Nan 11 could only vaguely hear Qing Wang's voice, but Rong Yu had good hearing and heard the voices in the hall clearly. After standing quietly for a while, the two turned around and left, walking across the arch bridge like a leisurely stroll. When they were far away, Rong Yu said lightly, "Fu Kang is also lucky." Nan 11 smiled gently. "What else?" "What else?" Rong Yu was silent for a moment and didn't speak. "Their way of getting along is so similar to ours back then." Nan 11 sighed. "I can't help but wonder if God has already arranged all this in the dark. The almost identical experience makes people have no reason to oppose." Rong Yu tilted his head. "If there is no such reason, would you oppose it?" Nan 11 thought for a while. "If Nuani insists, it should be useless to oppose it. After all, she herself couldn't control her emotions back then, so how could she ask her daughter to do it?" Rong Yu nodded slowly. "When children grow up, they will have their own ideas. Moreover, Nuani's temperament is different from that of ordinary women. She will not become a person who depends on men to live. She has her own ideas and will not accept a forced relationship. This is good." Rong Yu said calmly, "I don't have any other requirements. As long as she lives a smooth and worry-free life, it is enough." Nan 11 nodded. "I think so too." As the voice fell, she suddenly thought of the sentence she had just heard accidentally. If the cognition, vision, pattern, and pursuit are the same, the relationship between husband and wife can last long. Nan 11 couldn't help but be interested. Our cognition and vision should be equal. Rong Yu was silent, took her hand actively, and said in a slow and soft voice, "I am not as good as you." "I am not as good as you," Nan 11 corrected. "I am powerless." Rong Yu raised his lips. the difference in cognition and vision, and has nothing to do with martial arts. Nan 11 did not refute, but said, after this matter is over, should we go back to Dongling? After Hao ascended the throne, he was busy with government affairs and had no interest in the harem. He has passed the age of 30, but he has not even had a selection of concubines. The minister's memorials are probably piled up like a mountain. Rong Yu hummed, it's really outrageous. Genre is the same. Nan 11 frowned, why don't these people look like you? Rong Yu was in his early 20s when he snatched her to the palace. His two sons were taught by Rong Yu to be first class in both civil and military affairs, but they did not inherit his characteristics in terms of emotions. Rong Yu said, why don't we call Rong Zhan to ask him? Forget it. Nan 11 shook her head, let him rest, don't disturb him in the middle of the night. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 322. Early the next morning, Chu Qinghuang entered the palace early. Fukang could not accompany him, so he obediently held the 6th Tao and went to pay his respects to his master and his wife. He is said to be always there to serve, but in fact he doesn't need to do anything at all. He doesn't need to bring tea or water, or rub his shoulders or back. He just needs to stand quietly in a corner where no one is paying attention, open the book and read it, and listen to it at the same time. Listen to all directions and pay attention to possible abnormalities around you. This is not difficult for the shadow guard. Compared with multitasking and paying attention to the existence of danger at all times, it is obviously more difficult to skillfully read, understand, and skillfully use the knowledge in the book in hand. After Chu Qinghuang returned home last night, the situation in the palace was almost settled. It was useless for the queen to make trouble. King Xian reacted fiercely, but it also had no effect. Chu Xuanyi even directly conveyed the emperor's instructions, the princess is pregnant. The emperor ordered the prince to take care of the princess with peace of mind and not to be distracted by other affairs. It is the eldest princess who decides on matters in the court. King Xian was as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. Father, what does this mean? After imprisoning his mother and taking control of Prince Xian's palace, do you want to completely hand over the country to Chu Qinghuang? However, no matter what he thought, there was no room for change in the matter. The Imperial City Forbidden Army had almost 3 floors inside and 3 floors outside, surrounding Prince Xian's mansion like an iron barrel, and not a single fly or mosquito could escape. Before dawn in the morning, the ministers entered the palace to attend court, but the emperor was still nowhere to be seen. After waiting for half an hour, 3 spoken words came from Yuqian Palace. The emperor's dragon body is not in good condition and he needs to rest quietly. Starting from now on, he will be exempted from the imperial court for a month. Your Majesty's oral order. During the period of recess, the eldest princess will be the regent and supervise the country. All matters in the court, big and small, will be reported to the eldest princess, and the memorials will be reviewed and issued by Her Highness the eldest princess. On the 6th day of August, the crown prince ceremony will be held as scheduled. The 3 oral edicts emphasized the fact that Her Royal Highness the princess was already the perfect candidate to be the next king, and no matter who objected, they could not change the emperor's decision. The whole court was in an uproar, both civil and military. The important ministers of the court went to Yuqian Palace to see the Holy One, but even though they knelt in the sun and became oily, they could not see the holy face. The dragon body is not in good condition? The courtiers could not believe that the distinguished guests from Dongling and Shu had not yet left, but the emperor claimed to be ill at this time. My lords, Chen Hai stood on the stone steps outside the palace and advised, The emperor had a bad stomach last night and was indeed in disobedience. Last night he summoned Prince Rong and his son, Prince Ping, Prince Jing, and Prince Kong, and asked several princes and princes to fully assist the eldest princess. The cabinet ministers and several ministers have also received the decree. In the future, I also ask you to assist the eldest princess and be sure not to anger the eldest princess. After that, he turned around and entered the palace. The ministers who knelt down to beg the emperor looked at each other for a while, then had to get up and leave temporarily. Chu Qinghuang ignored these ministers who had not yet seen the situation clearly, took Chu Xuanyi around the palace, arranged everything that should be arranged, and asked lightly, "Chu Xuanyi, what do you think about the harem? How should the concubine be placed?" Chu Xuanyi was slightly surprised. The emperor is in his prime, and if nothing else happens, he will die very early. Her Royal Highness, the eldest princess, is now thinking about how to arrange the concubines. Don't be nervous. Chu Qinghuang's voice was indifferent. I have no intention of regicide. My father will live until his death. Chu Xuanyi was silent. He felt that the eldest princess spoke without any scruples, and the ministers all shouted, "Long live the emperor!" Even if death was a satisfactory way for most people, no one would dare to say it so bluntly. I don't dare to comment on how to arrange the concubines, Chu Xuanyi said, quickly changing the subject. Eunuch Chen was ordered early in the morning to arrange for the palace people to clean up the East Palace, except for the ant in the eldest princess's mansion. In addition to the maids, there are also 2 maids, 2 female officials, 2 female doctors, and 16 palace maids according to the specifications of the prince. After the ceremony of establishing the prince on the 6th day of August, His Highness can move to the East Palace. Chu Qinghuang hummed and had no reaction to this. Instead, he thought of another question. In the autumn of next month, is Chu Xuan's on the roster? Chu Xuanyi nodded, yes. The date of the autumn palace has been set. It will last for 3 days from August 24th to the 26th. Chu Xuan's is the second brother of Chu Xuanyi. He is 19 years old this year. He is among the list of those who will participate in the autumn palace. 1. Are you sure? She should be sure, Chu Xuanyi said. He hasn't even left the house recently, concentrating on preparing for his homework. Chu Qinghuang hummed, how is Chu Xuanyi doing lately? Reborn. When referring to the younger brother who was once the least effective, Chu Xuanyi's tone became more relaxed. The physique is much stronger than before, and he is also calm and sensible. Recently, he has been training in the army and eating with the soldiers in the military camp. Living together, we are no longer as delicate as before, which has changed a lot. Chu Qinghuang whispered, I still remember what you said the night you first went to the eldest princess's mansion. Chu Xuanyi frowned. Although he was not a talkative person, he said more than one sentence the first night he went to the eldest princess's mansion, so he didn't remember which sentence Chu Qinghuang was referring to. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 323. You said that Prince Rong's mansion would be loyal to the emperor. Chu Qinghuang spoke calmly, looking towards the imperial study room in front. Chu Xuanyi, you should remember this sentence carefully. Chu Xuanyi lowered his eyebrows. I remember. I appoint people on their merits, whether they are relatives of the royal family, ministers of aristocratic families, legitimate sons and concubines, nobles and poor families, as long as they are available and useful, I don't mind promoting them. Even if the father and son of Prince Rong are in the court, you are in charge of the imperial army, Chu Xian. If you want to be a civil servant, even if your incompetent brother can earn a military rank, let Prince Rong's palace become the dominant one. Chu Qinghuang said, I don't care, but you know my temper. Chu Xuanyi does know very well. Strictly speaking, Chu Qinghuang's temperament is not suitable for being an emperor. If she is not too powerful and courageous, such a straightforward temperament is not the style that a king should have. No emperor in the past dynasties would say these words to his ministers so bluntly. Being secretive and unpredictable is the impression a king should leave on his subjects. People cannot guess, dare not guess, and must not let people know her thoughts so easily. But Chu Qinghuang decided not to take the ordinary path. When it comes to scientific examinations, we have to mention the Ministry of Personnel, because the Ministry of Personnel is responsible for the future promotion, adjustment, rewards, punishments, and demotions of officials. Chu Xuanyi said, the minister of the Ministry of Personnel is from King Ling. It should be said that the entire staff is under the control of King Ling. Chu Qinghuang didn't care. The eldest brother is in charge of the staff department and has not done anything that shouldn't be done for the time being. I will not touch the staff department. Chu Xuanyi nodded. He just gave her a little reminder to let her know. The same goes for Prince Rong's palace. Chu Qinghuang said, no matter how powerful you are, whether you are low-key or public, as long as you don't do anything you shouldn't do, even if the power is overwhelming, I will keep you safe. He tilted his head and said, as the heir of the royal family, you shouldn't need me to remind you what you should do and what you shouldn't do. Chu Xuanyi shuddered slightly, lowered his head and said, I know. Chu Qinghuang said nothing more. What she said was not to warn him, but to give him reassurance. Prince Rong's family is considered a noble one. Prince Rong still holds great power in the court. His eldest son, Chu Xuanyi, is in charge of the command of the Nine-Door Imperial Army. His second son, Chu Suans, is about to take the scientific examination and become an official. As long as he has enough knowledge and strong ability, Chu Qinghuang will always don't mind promotion and reuse. To say the least, she has never thought of suppressing her clan members. To the extent possible, the ministers of Prince Rong's mansion are definitely more loyal than ministers from other aristocratic families, because they all belong to the royal family and have a natural sense of clan responsibility and honor. Give him a reassurance that he will do things well in the future and not be always worried and hesitant. Arriving at the imperial study room, Chu Qinghuang saw a pile of foldable books piled on the table. He flipped through a few books to read, and then ordered to the left and right, while my father is recuperating, these foldables can be sent to the imperial palace. His health is a little weak, there is discomfort, but it does not hinder the review of the memorial. The palace people bowed their heads in response. Chu Qinghuang thought for a while, then turned around and saw a handsome little eunuch standing in the corner. Come here. The little eunuch walked over tremblingly, and knelt down with a plop. Slave, slave Shen Shen Shen, see Her Royal Highness the eldest princess. I'm not trying to kill you, so there's no need to be so scared. Chu Qinghuang frowned. What's your name? Slave, slave Yuan Bao. Chu Qinghuang said, go and send a message to this palace, asking all civil servants and generals of the third rank and above to come to the Kinzen Hall tomorrow morning to discuss matters. There is no need to come too early, just arrive before Chen hour. After a pause, he added slowly, if anyone doesn't come, I will take people to search your home. Yes, yes. After Yuan Bao finished speaking, he said tremblingly, slave, I speak softly. If adults don't believe me, this is my token, you can use it for now. Chu Qinghuang threw the token on the desk, behave well, and you will work with me from now on. Yes. Chu Qinghuang turned and left the imperial study room. Yuan Bao is still kneeling on the ground blankly. Will he work next to Her Royal Highness the Princess from now on? Is this pie from the sky, or is it thunder from the sky? If he behaves badly, will Her Majesty the Princess whip him and strangle his neck? After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 324. Her Royal Highness the Princess loves to ransack homes. This incident has left a deep and terrifying impression on the courtiers. After all, the Ling family and the Hong family have learned from the past, and no one will doubt how threatening her words are. So when Yuan Bao took Chu King Huang's token to pass on the orders one by one, the ministers had different reactions. The clan princes headed by Prince Rong were very cooperative. Some of the cabinet ministers and the heads of the 6 ministries obeyed the orders respectfully, while others were shocked and angry. Dared to be angry but dared not say anything, but without exception, they all arrived at Kinzen Hall before midnight the next morning, and no one was late. This shows that Her Royal Highness the Princess has so much authority that the ministers dare not speak loudly. So Chu Qing Huang officially began to oversee the regency, and the process went surprisingly smoothly. The prince has not yet been registered, so Chu Qing Huang is still living in the eldest princess's mansion for the time being. He goes to the palace every morning and returns to the mansion in the evening. After having dinner in the mansion, he washes and changes clothes and waits for the return of a certain shadow guard. I don't know if it's because she's still staying in the princess mansion and doesn't want her daughter to feel distressed. Rong Yu is almost indifferent to Fukang. Fukang goes and comes back on time every day, and his life is pretty good. We're treated rather harshly. Chu Qing Huang would talk to him about homework before going to bed at night, and chat a little about what happened in the palace during the day. They used to be inseparable every day, but now they can only be together at night. For Fukang, everything Chu Qing Huang said, every word sounded so nice. He listened very carefully for fear of missing a sentence. Time passed like this day by day. His Majesty the Emperor stayed in the Yuqian Palace. Apart from approving and distributing articles every day, he also chatted with concubine Xian. In the past, he put most of his energy on concubine Xian and concubine Duan, and occasionally went to the Queen's palace, because these 3 parties were equally powerful and had his desire to compete for reserves, and his ability to compete for reserves naturally require his attention. Concubine Xian was quiet. Except for her status as a concubine, she had no children. The Queen Mother and the Empress felt that even making things difficult for her was a waste of time, so she had been living quietly these years. Unexpectedly, more than 10 years later, she suddenly obtained independence. Favorite honor. He has been waiting in Yuqian Palace for more than half a month. After Chu Qing Huang came to power, apart from the Queen and the princes who were under house arrest in disguise, the most restless ones were the Zhenbei King and his son. At the end of July, the Zhenbei King asked to see Chu Qing Huang at the eldest princess's mansion and proposed to return to his fiefdom. One thing. I have been away from the fiefdom for a long time. If I don't go back, I'm afraid the generals in the fiefdom will have ideas. King Zhenbei's tone was respectful, but it was clearly threatening. I'm not here, I'm afraid they will do something impulsive. Something irrational happened. Have you done something irrational? Chu Qing Huang sat on a chair in the study room and said lightly, if King Zhenbei hadn't said anything, I would have almost forgotten this incident. With that said, he directly ordered someone to call Qi Ling. An ominous premonition flashed through King Zhenbei's mind. After a while, Qi Ling walked into the imperial study and saluted respectfully, Your Highness has summoned me. Qi Ling, starting today, you will take over the military power in the Mianbei fiefdom. Chu Qing Huang ordered in front of Prince Zhenbei and his son, tomorrow, we will select 3,000 troops from the Silver Armor Army to go with you to the Mianbei fiefdom. King Zhenbei's expression changed, Your Highness, the eldest princess. This is what my father meant. Chu Qing Huang looked at him expressionlessly. My father said before that he would make some adjustments to the military strength of the Mianbei fiefdom. King Zhenbei has not forgotten it, right? King Zhenbei looked extremely ugly. Adjustment does not mean the power to directly remove ministers. Do you want to take a look at this roster? Chu Qing Huang pulled out a roster from the file in the corner of the desk, held it in his hand and raised it. The king of Zhenbei was not strict in his control, and allowed his generals to occupy farming lands and oppress the local people, colluded with grain dealers to drive up grain prices, causing the people to suffer terribly and have no way to appeal. The names recorded on this list are all heinous criminals. Do you want me to read their names to you? King Genbei instantly darkened his face. In order to deal with me, Her Royal Highness, the eldest princess, did not hesitate to slander and frame me. Whether it is a slander or a frame-up, the king of Genbei knows it well, and I also know it in my heart. Chu King Huang's voice was cold, and she was not irritated by him. Do you think that I have done nothing during the time you stayed in Beijing? Or do you think that I have done nothing? Do you think my father just wants to keep you here to reminisce? When he was hesitating whether to cooperate with Chu Tianyan or stand behind Chu Tianqiu, Chu Qinghuang had already sent people to investigate the Mianbei general's crimes. Qi Ling Chu Qinghuang threw the roster to him. After selecting suitable personnel, you lead people to Mianbei as soon as possible, deal with the people who should be dealt with, and return Mianbei to a place where the people of Mianbei can live in peace. Yes, Qi Ling bowed his head and accepted the order. Can I take Zhong Jin with me? If there is collusion between officials and businessmen, the generals can deal with it according to the military regulations, while the profiteers can be dealt with by Mr. Shen, who knows how to make an abacus. It will not be too late to punish them after all the ill-gotten gains they have taken have been vomited out and returned to the people. That's right. Thank you, Your Highness. Qi Ling put the roster in his arms and was about to turn around and leave, but was blocked by Qi Yun. How can a despicable bastard, who is not even worthy of carrying my shoes, be qualified to be a vassal king? Qi Yun's expression was cold, and his eyes looking at Qi Ling were filled with disdain. With a face that looks good on others, you want to fly into the sky. Qi Ling, you are so shameless that you have eaten out the essence of soft rice. Thank you for the compliment. I will keep up the good work. Qi Ling smiled slightly and slowly moved his hand away. It's just a pity that I will never have the chance to carry your shoes in this life. After the words fell, he opened the door and walked out. Outside the study, a large number of imperial guards had already stood there, led by Chu Xuanyi, dressed in black and armored, with a stern aura. Throw the father and son of the Genbei king into jail and let the Ministry of Justice try them first, Chu Qinghuang said calmly. Tell the Minister of Justice that within half a month, I will collect all the charges against the father and son of the Genbei king. Chu Xuanyi lowered his eyebrows. I obey your orders. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 325. The princess's mansion is full of experts. The Genbei king and his son came to see him today. Strictly speaking, it was actually a way of walking into a trap. They originally thought that the emperor's body was not in good condition, and the princess was in power. She didn't know the situation of the Mianbei fiefdom. They could take the opportunity to exert some pressure to achieve the goal of returning to Mianbei as soon as possible. Who would have thought that the princess had already prepared for it? She directly convicted him of a crime with a list, caught the Genbei king and his son off guard, and even decisively let Qi Ling take over the Genbei king's military power. Facing the imposing imperial guards outside, surrounded by a full 200 people, the Genbei king had no chance to escape, and even resisting was futile. Sister is becoming more and more like my father. Rongzhan, who witnessed the Genbei king and his son being taken away, walked into the study and admired sincerely. If my brother saw this scene, I wonder if he would feel a sense of crisis. Sense of crisis? Chu Qinghuang glanced at him. If my brother wanted to dominate the world, he would not have waited until now. Ziki could have been his possession 10 years ago. That's true, but Mother plans to go back to Dongling in a while. Chu Qinghuang reminded him. You and my brother are already grown up, but you still don't have a wife. It's not right. Rongzhan pouted. Sister, even your tone of voice is similar to that of father. Chu Qinghuang. I haven't met the woman destined for me yet, so I'm not in a hurry. Rongzhan smiled. But my brother. Chu Qinghuang raised his eyebrows. What's the trick? Buddha said, "It can't be said, it can't be said." Rongzhan turned and walked out. "I won't disturb you from your business. I'm going to find the cute little Hongyu to learn from you." Chu Qinghuang frowned and looked at his back expressionlessly. On the second day of August, the emperor, who had been resting in the Yugan Palace, finally showed up. However, he did not summon the ministers to discuss matters, but invited the regent prince of Dongling and the empress to the Qinzhen Palace for a secret talk. No one knew what they talked about. From August on, the palace was busy with the ceremony of enthroning the crown prince, and all the palace people were visibly busy. However, at the critical moment, an imperial decree suddenly came down. The emperor is in poor health, mentally weak, and unable to govern. From today on, he will abdicate to the regent princess Chu Qinghuang. The emperor is the emperor emeritus, the empress is the empress dowager, and they will move to the Xi'an palace. This is the order. The voice was high and resounded inside and outside the palace for a long time. The civil and military officials in the court were speechless and could not say a word. They could only kowtow to the emperor. After hearing the abdication edict, the empress and the princes who were imprisoned in Changchun Palace, Suanjun Prince's mansion, and Jinjun Prince's mansion felt like they were struck by lightning. Even the Queen Mother of Renshao Palace heard the news, and her face changed drastically in an instant. "This is impossible. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous." The tender voice of a baby followed, "Ridiculous. Ridiculous. Long live the Queen. Long live the Queen." The Queen Mother was exposed in an instant, raised her hand and threw it to the ground. "Get out. You little beast. Get out of here. Get out of here." The petite snow-white little beast scurried on the ground flexibly, and in an instant, it jumped out like a flash of lightning and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The Queen Mother watched it leave, trembling with anger. "Little beast. Damn bastard. Why did he pass the throne to Chu Qinghuang? A bastard with impure blood, he was allowed to be the emperor for so many years in vain, but he was ungrateful and had to go against her." The Queen Mother sat gloomily on the phoenix chair, her face covered with frost, and her eyes were full of desperate murderous aura. The snow-white little beast scurried to concubine Duan in the harem. "Long live the empress. Long live the empress." The childish voice rang in her ears without warning, and concubine Duan was startled and stood up instantly. Who is talking?" The snow-white little beast jumped flexibly, and its small and exquisite body jumped onto the table. "Long live the empress. Long live the empress." Concubine Duan stared at the little thing, recognizing that it was a birthday gift from Chu Qinghuang to the empress dowager, and somehow it ran to her palace. "Long live the empress?" Thinking of the imperial edict she received half an hour ago, concubine Duan's expression gradually became sinister and indifferent. Damn old fox. He imprisoned all the concubines and princes in the harem, and abdicated to Chu Qinghuang without any warning, deliberately making it impossible for anyone to object. He really made a good calculation. And Chu Qinghuang, that traitor, if I had known she was so unfilial, I should have strangled her to death in her cradle, so that she wouldn't go against me in everything when I grew up. Long live the Queen. Long live the Queen. Shut up, concubine Duan shouted. Get out. Long live the Queen. Long. Get out. Concubine Duan seemed to be out of control, picked up the teacup at hand and threw it. I told you to get out, didn't you hear? Get out. The little beast dodged flexibly, and added fuel to the fire and said, Long live the Queen. Long live the Queen. Concubine Duan's face was ashen. Come here. Catch this little beast. I want to drown her alive. The palace servant received the order and hurried forward to catch the little beast. The little beast jumped left and right, jumping flexibly. Long live the Queen. The palace servant hurriedly reached out to catch it, but in the panic, he couldn't even touch the little beast's tail, which made concubine Duan's face ashen and pale, and trembled for a while. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 326. A small beast half the size of an adult's palm caused chaos in the harem. The queen mother was furious, and concubine Duan lost control. The beast rushed to Changchun Palace and said in a soft voice, "Long live the queen! Long live the queen! 1,000 years for the queen mother! 1,000 years for the queen mother!" The queen turned her head in shock and stared at the snow-white beast in front of her as if she had seen a ghost, with a deep gaze and a cold expression. A talking beast? As expected, Chu Qinghuang was the best at playing tricks. She caused chaos in the court with her own strength, and the major families were panicked, but in the end she easily defeated all the emperor brothers and sat on the throne alone. Ambitious, it was obvious. Respected as the queen mother, haha. Her son failed to sit on the throne, so how honorable was she as the queen mother? Today, the emperor could imprison her on a trumped-up charge, and in the future Chu Qinghuang could also abolish her as the queen mother on a trumped-up charge, or even let her disappear quietly in the harem, just like concubine Feng and her daughter in the past. There wasn't even a grand funeral. The queen closed her eyes tightly, her heart aching with hatred. If she could go out now, she would definitely bring enough people to force into the Yugan Palace and slap the emperor hard to vent the frustration she had felt during this period of time. The eunuch who delivered the imperial edict respectfully reminded, "Your Majesty, you should have someone pack up as soon as possible. You have to move to Xi'an Palace before the 6th day of the first lunar month." The queen looked at the eunuch who delivered the imperial edict coldly. "How is the emperor's health these days?" To reply to the queen, "The emperor has not been in good health, and Empress Yen has been taking care of him recently." The queen didn't say anything, and her expression became more gloomy. Empress Yen took care of him. The emperor wanted to be the emperor at such a young age? He was sick. And he was seriously ill. "Your Majesty wants to take concubine Yen out for fun." Nan 11 looked surprised. "Emperors don't like to stay in the palace these days." "Wrong." You poured Nan 11 a cup of tea and said leisurely, "Maybe he is tired of being an emperor, too much helplessness and involuntary, so he wants to unload his responsibilities and go out to relax early." Nan 11 pondered thoughtfully. The emperor of Ziki is a wise ruler, but the situation is beyond his control. The weather, the location, and the people are not on his side. He can't do what he wants to do, so he can't help but feel a little powerless. Since he ascended the throne at a young age, although he has not experienced cruel competition for the throne, he has faced a situation where he cannot help himself after sitting on the throne. It is inevitable to feel powerless after finally resolving the civil strife. Now that he has a daughter with courage, and this daughter has the help of a powerful country, it is reasonable to strike while the iron is hot and give her full power, allowing her to fully display her fists and feet to eliminate the accumulated malpractices in the court, and he can also go out to relax. But rationality is rationality. How many people in the world can be so indifferent to power and let go? "It's only now that I really admire him." Nan 11 smiled lightly, "Not because Nuan is my daughter, but because of the decision he can make for responsibility and the courage to choose the right time. Everyone has shortcomings, no one is perfect, but even if he is unable to do what he wants, as an emperor, he will never let the people down. This is the character that a wise monarch should have." "Wrong." You said, "He and Nuan complement each other." Nan 11 understood what he meant. Nuan was doomed, and Ziki's national strength declined. Now this situation is considered to give Nuan a chance to be reborn, and it is also a chance for Ziki to prosper and become strong. Nuan temperament is like you. Nan 11 said, "If she becomes the queen of Ziki, she will definitely put the people first and will not disappoint the expectations of the emperor of Ziki." As he said, he sighed faintly, if all countries have wise monarchs who can restrain their selfish ambitions and think more about the people, why would there be so many wars in the world? All countries have wise monarchs. Fu Kang, who was standing in the corner holding a book, frowned slightly, and read the contents of the book seriously and attentively. He took in every word of Rong Yu and Nan 11's casual chat, and seemed to be thinking about something. When he returned to the bedroom in the evening, Fu Kang, who was always so taciturn that he would never speak before Chu Qing Huang, actually took the initiative to ask for the first time, "Master, do you want to be a wise ruler?" Chu Qing Huang was slightly surprised, and then raised his eyebrows nonchalantly. "Of course, can you be a tyrant who is scolded by everyone?" Fu Kang shook his head, "That's not what I mean. 11 Qi is already weak enough. If I become a tyrant again, I can make 11 Qi miserable and the people live in misery within 10 years. Chu Qing Huang said, reaching out and knocking on his head, "So you have to practice well and master all kinds of martial arts, so that you can help me when the time comes, so that I, a wise ruler, don't have to be so tired." Fu Kang nodded, "Master, don't worry, I will definitely study hard." After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 327. On the auspicious day of August 6, the coronation ceremony of Her Majesty the Queen was held. If most of the court officials had accepted the fact before, and only a few still had a glimmer of hope, then after this decree was issued, the hope of these few remaining people was directly cut off. The civil and military ministers all thought that the emperor had gone crazy. Not to mention the king of a country, even these ministers who were trembling all day long would never take the initiative to retire and return home in their 40s. Who doesn't live for fame and fortune? After 10 years of hard study and half a lifetime of hard work, who doesn't live for fame and fortune? With great power in hand, holding the power of life and death of the whole country, he actually said he would abdicate. If they said that the emperor was not bewitched, they would not believe it. However, no matter how they think now, no matter how dissatisfied they are, they can't change the fact that the matter is done. On the 6th day of August, the coronation ceremony was held as scheduled. No one came out to disrupt it at this time. Even the imprisoned Suanjun Prince Chu Tianqiu, Jinjun Prince Chu Tianyin, and the 5th Prince Chu Tianzheng were forced to participate in the ceremony. The coronation ceremony was grand and complicated. The dragon robe made in a hurry by the inner court was slim and fit, and the bright yellow light was dazzling. The 15-year-old girl had a cold face, a noble demeanor, and her eyebrows and eyes were filled with a noble and inviolable atmosphere. The endless steps of the palace were filled with royal guards. Civil and military officials stood in the square in an orderly manner, witnessing this first coronation ceremony of the empress in the history of Ziki. The process was no different from the coronation ceremonies of previous dynasties. The only difference was that the person who ascended the dragon throne was a princess, not a prince. The bells and drums sounded, and all the officials kowtowed. A high-pitched voice sounded, "Kneel." All the officials knelt down, kowtowed, and stood up. "Kneel again." The officials knelt for the second time, kowtowed, and stood up. "Kneel for the third time." No matter how reluctant they were, they still solemnly repeated the same action, and would never make any irrational moves at such a sacred and solemn moment. But accidents are inevitable at any time. Chu Qing Huang stood on the high steps of the palace, silently and majestically looking at the crowds of people in the square, the orderly guards, the respectful and submissive officials, the officials of the Ministry of Rites who were responsible for presiding over the ceremony, and the female officials accompanying her. Whoosh! A sharp voice suddenly cut through the air, and a sharp dart with a cold light shot towards the bright yellow figure that attracted the attention of thousands of people at lightning speed, murderous, sharp and cold. Chu Qing Huang frowned slightly, staring at the dart that was coming quickly, and her cold eyebrows were like frost. A figure flashed out from the dark behind him, and dozens of black-clad figures suddenly emerged from all directions. The murderous darts were shot down by the shadow guards who suddenly emerged before they could get close to Chu Qinghuang. Shadow guards are out. Imperial guards are out. The noble queen was instantly protected behind heavy defenses. At the same time, there was a commotion in the square. There's an assassin. Protect the emperor. Protect the emperor quickly. Come on. Catch the assassin. The officials who realized it later started to roar in a hurry, not knowing whether they were taking the opportunity to show their loyalty or were eager to remove themselves from the suspicion of assassination. However, looking at the huge square, it was majestic, powerful, and solemn. In such an occasion, where could the assassin hide? Fu Kang pursed his lips tightly, his eyes as sharp as a cold sword, staring closely at the guards holding the treasure canopy on both sides of the palace road in the distant square. In a moment, his body rushed out like a gust of wind. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 328. A man dressed as a guard was kicked to his knees by Fu Kang, and his neck was held down. The moment he was discovered, he subconsciously wanted to commit suicide by taking poison, but Fu Kang was quick-witted and removed his jaw in an instant, and took out the poison pill that was always in his teeth. At this time, his jaw and arm were removed, and he could neither take poison nor resist. Chu Xuanyi and the imperial guards came in unison, with more than a dozen swords on his neck. A Ministry of Rights official was still in shock and ordered, "Quick! Take him down for interrogation. See who instructed him to assassinate Her Majesty the Queen? He is so bold. He deserves death." Fu Kang said in a cold tone, "Fu Feng, Fu Ying, take him to the dark chamber of punishment. He is not allowed to contact anyone except the four of you." "Yes." The man was quickly taken away, without saying a word. His eyes were silent and without fluctuations, as if he had expected such a result long ago. It was a false alarm. All the civil and military officials in the court breathed a sigh of relief at the same time, but they couldn't help but wonder in their hearts, how did this assassin get in? Today's coronation ceremony, the palace gates are strictly screened, the guards on duty, the ministers attending the ceremony, the officials of the Ministry of Rights, the eunuchs and the palace maids who presided over the ceremony, all went through layers of inspections and body checks. No weapons were allowed, and no outsiders were allowed to enter. With strict security, how could anyone get in easily? Fu Kang returned to Chu Qinghuang's side and whispered, "Master, that man is also a shadow guard." Chu Qinghuang raised his eyebrows, "Shadow guard?" Yes. Fu Kang pursed his lips, his expression was self-blaming for dereliction of duty, but he is old and is no longer in the dark chamber. I think he was instructed by the Queen Mother. Chu Qinghuang recalled the man just now, who was about 40 years old, with a dull expression and dull eyes, which was indeed the characteristics of a shadow guard. It is not difficult for a well-trained shadow guard to sneak into such an occasion, but it is not so easy to succeed with Fu Kang present. Why do you guess it is the Queen Mother? Fu Kang said, except for the Emperor, only the Queen Mother has such an old shadow guard around her. After the shadow guards get married, they are assigned to the master's side, mostly to fulfill their protection duties. Generally, if there is no accident, even if their physical strength begins to deteriorate due to age, they can live to 30 or 40 years old. Shadow guards who often go out on missions may die in accidents at any time, but the close shadow guards around the Emperor and the Queen Mother will not, and they may even live longer because of the good food. Chu Qinghuang hummed and didn't ask any more questions. Fu Kang knew more about the affairs of the dark chamber than she did. There are also unwritten rules among the dark chamber shadow guards. Unless there are special instructions, they usually do not interfere with each other's work, and they cannot cross the line to investigate others. Unless they break the rules and do things they shouldn't. For example, this time. I will pry open his mouth. Fu Kang pursed his lips, You should also accept the master's punishment for your dereliction of duty. Chu Qinghuang glanced at him, and the corners of her lips rose slightly. In this case, I will punish you tonight. Fu Kang said respectfully, yes. The episode passed quickly, and the ministers were scared to death, but Chu Qinghuang had a calm expression, as if she didn't take it to heart. The ceremony continued. Chu Qinghuang turned around and walked slowly, with a straight back and a slender waist. The robe embroidered with 5-clawed dragon patterns looked noble and dazzling under the reflection of the sun. Walking through the empty hall, led by 2 rows of ceremonial officials, Chu Qinghuang walked step by step to the danbai and stepped on the steps in the middle of the hall. The ministers entered the hall one after another. The queen slowly took her seat. All officials knelt and bowed in worship. Long live the emperor, long live the emperor, long live the emperor. Long live the empress, long live the empress, long live the empress. The voice was as loud as thunder, echoing throughout the hall for a long time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 329. What? The emperor who was staying in Yugan Palace was shocked. Qing Huang was assassinated. The assassin has been arrested, and Her Majesty is not injured. Chen Hai bowed and reported, Your Majesty, don't worry. The emperor, oh no, His Majesty. The retired emperor's face sank. This is simply outrageous. Qing Huang has ascended the throne, and there are still people who take risks. Does this mean they don't take the imperial power seriously? Your Majesty, don't worry. Concubine Xian spoke slowly. The eldest princess should be called the Empress now. Although she is young, she has great martial arts skills and is protected by masters. In addition, the security is tight today. The person who ordered the assassin to commit the crime is definitely a fool. If the Empress is really hurt, I'm afraid that a large number of the imperial guards and shadow guards will die. The Emperor frowned. What are you talking about on a lucky day? Qing Huang is the reincarnation of the Emperor Phoenix. How can she be hurt so easily? After saying that, he added, even if she is accidentally injured, Qing Huang is not a person who likes to vent her anger on others. The imperial guards and shadow guards who fail to do their job will be whipped at most, and they will not kill people on such an important day. As soon as these words came out, Concubine Xian's expression suddenly became strange. Will not kill people on such a day? What kind of day is this? Did the emperor just abdicate and forget that emperors always like to kill people when they ascended the throne? As soon as he got power, he didn't immediately start a massacre to eliminate dissidents. But okay, this emperor really hasn't experienced it, because he ascended the throne as a young emperor, and he didn't go through a struggle for the throne, nor did he go through fighting. He hasn't killed ministers on a large scale in all these years in office. So it's understandable. As for whether Chu Qinghuang is a person who likes to vent his anger on others, Empress Yen doesn't dare to say this. Anyway, she doesn't have much contact with Chu Qinghuang. She only knows that Chu Qinghuang used to kill and beat people as a daily routine, and it doesn't have much to do with whether he vents his anger on others. The current Chu Qinghuang has indeed not vented his anger on others for a while. After the coronation ceremony, will we leave the palace? Concubine Xian didn't care about anything else now, she only cared about when she could leave the palace and leave this place where people had no freedom at all. Have you arranged the guards? Your Majesty must arrange more people. I don't want to die before I reach Yunchinj. The retired emperor's expression improved a little when he heard about leaving the palace. We will leave tomorrow, with a light car and a small group. We can't bring too many people. Too many people will attract attention and easily cause trouble. Concubine Xian heard what he said and felt that he made sense. Your Majesty is right. Don't forget to bring more silver bills. Silver bills are light and easy to carry. Carrying more silver is a burden and it is easy for thieves to think about it. Concubine Xian was silent for a moment. Where did I get the silver bills? The monthly salary of the palace concubine was paid in silver. Except for the jewelry occasionally rewarded by the emperor, there was really not much silver money available. Besides, she didn't compete for favor and didn't get favor in those years. Even her jewelry was much shabby than that of concubine Duan and concubine Gui. The emperor asked her to bring silver bills. Isn't this a joke? The emperor was speechless when he heard this. No silver bills. I'll prepare some for your majesty, and concubine Xian Chenhai said quickly, but if too much is needed, it may require the consent of her majesty the queen. Ahem, the queen is now the ruler of a country, and the Minister of Finance must listen to Her Majesty the Queen. The expression of the retired emperor was subtle. Does this mean that I still need King Huang's consent if I want to use money? At the last birthday banquet, he was still moved by King Huang's private property added to the national treasury. Only a month has passed, and even the national treasury is King Huang's private property. Your Majesty Chen Hai glanced at him silently, lowered his eyebrows and suggested, how about cancelling the coronation ceremony? In this way, the emperor is still the emperor, and the power of the national treasury is back in his hands. The retired emperor. Even if he really wants to cancel it, I'm afraid he can't do it now. Besides, giving up the opportunity to go out of the palace for that little money? The newly abdicated emperor frowned deeply, thinking that it was more important to leave the palace. The less money, the better. If not, he could borrow some from Queen Dongling after leaving the palace. Considering that they were all respected elders like Qing Huang, the queen would not be reluctant to part with it. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 330. After the coronation ceremony, Chu Qing Huang moved into the palace, not the Yugan Palace, nor the East Palace, but the Zhuhua Palace, which is closest to the Qinzhen Palace. Dozens of beautiful palace maids knelt on both sides to welcome the emperor, all wearing pink palace clothes. 4 maids held clothes and knelt on the ground waiting to serve Her Majesty the Queen to bathe and change clothes. There was also Yuan Bao who knelt in the corner trembling and dared not move, and the guards outside the Zhuhua Palace were like iron barrels. Chu Qing Huang looked at the scene in front of her, frowned slightly, and said calmly, all retreat. The palace servants retreated with their eyebrows lowered, and it was so quiet that no sound could be heard. Chu Qing Huang walked into the palace and looked at the furnishings in the palace. It was arranged completely according to the specifications of a monarch. Except for the soft color tone, everything showed noble luxury. Fu Kang stepped forward silently to help her undress, took off a noble robe and hung it up, and changed Chu Qing Huang into a light and loose outer robe. Master, you must be tired. Have some tea and rest first. Minjiao brought hot tea. The meal will be served soon. Master, please sit for a while. Chu Qing Huang walked to the dragon-patterned brocade couch in front of the screen and sat down. With his back against the soft cushion, he silently looked at the memorials piled up on the table and said lightly, what is father doing now? Minjiao was stunned and turned to look at the maids in the hall. The maids naturally didn't know and all lowered their heads. The emperor is preparing to leave the palace. Fu Kang walked over, knelt beside Chu Qing Huang, and massaged her shoulders and back. But he is short of money at the moment, and plans to borrow some from Her Majesty the Queen of Dongling. Chu Qing Huang was stunned and slowly turned to look at him. What did you say? Fu Kang repeated in a low voice, the emperor is short of money and plans to borrow money from the Queen of Dongling. Chu Qing Huang's expression suddenly became strange. As the king of a country, he borrowed money from the queen of another country just after abdication? He thought of it. Chu Qing Huang was silent for a moment, picked up the teacup and sipped slowly. Minjiao, you will go out of the palace later and go back to the princess's mansion to get my private money. I only want silver notes, not cash. Yes, Minjiao agreed. How much does the master want to take? How much money is left in my private treasury? I don't know. Minjiao thought for a while. When Mr. Chu was here, he gave the butler 100,000 taels of silver notes and asked him to put it in the master's private treasury. Bring them all here. Yes, Minjiao agreed, and reminded, the master has ascended the throne and can no longer call him this palace. Chu Qinghuang was silent for a moment, and nodded slowly, well, I know. After saying this, she looked at the cushion in silence, and still felt like she was being forced to do something. According to her original plan, she was going to start a drastic rectification of the government after ascending to the throne, promote new and wise officials, select outstanding military generals, and even thought about the silver needed for the later imperial examinations to select students and raise elite soldiers and horses in advance, borrowing money from her father. The silver obtained from the treasury was just a drop in the bucket if used to develop the army. In addition to the silver used by the court, a large amount of silver was also needed to build cities at the border. So she needed to borrow another 10 million taels from her father. But before borrowing money, she should first remove some corrupt officials who occupied high positions and did nothing in the court, and replace them with officials who really worked for the people. By then, the court would be completely new, and Ziki would naturally become stronger. But she didn't expect the emperor to be so impatient that he turned the ceremony of enthroning the crown prince directly into the ceremony of coronation. Not to mention that the queen, concubine Duan, and the princes were furious, even she didn't expect it at all. Chu Qinghuang thought so, sorted herself out and stood up, forget it, I'll leave the palace for a while, I'll have someone give the banknotes that my father needs to him later. Today is different from the past. After the coronation ceremony, she is the noble monarch of a country, and the imperial guards are indispensable when leaving the palace, so the royal guards escorted the new queen to the princess's mansion. Half an hour later. Borrow money. Nan 11 looked at Chu Qinghuang with a subtle expression, Nuani you are the king of Ziki, so you are so distant with us? You can take as much money as you want from your father. Do you need to ask us for a loan? No, if I use this money for myself, of course I don't need to borrow it. My father's money is my money. Chu Qinghuang shook her head, but I borrow money to support the army, build cities, and provide relief to the people. This is for the country and the people. It should be handled impartially and cannot be mixed up. Paused, and this account must be known to all the civil and military officials of Ziki, and it must be repaid in the future.